Hello, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, a show in which I chat with really cool people about interesting topics to spark and inspire and motivate personal and professional change. And today's topic is, can I financially afford to leave my relationship? And this conversation is worth your while if you're afraid to get divorced or leave your partner because you don't think you can afford it. And yet you want to be smart and realistic about how to support your family given new financial circumstances. And you want to create a secure financial future. So we're going to talk about the financial fears that are keeping you in a relationship when you know you want out. And we're going to talk about how to overcome those fears and gain peace of mind around your financial future. So let's start with some introductions. I'm Linda Bucher. I'm a heart centered master coach, mindset mentor, transformative speaker, author, and show host. And if you're excited about making a positive impact on the world and you know there's this bigness inside you and you want to do more, be more, and have more joy, more fun, more balance, and more impact, then connect with me because my gift is lighting the way for those who are meant to be giving their gifts to the world. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Gina Phillips of Western New York Divorce Financial Advisors. And Gina helps individuals going through the marital transition process to understand and navigate financial uncertainty during this very emotional period in their lives. So, hi, Gina, welcome.
Hi, nice to be here, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about, what you do and who you do it for and why this topic is worth your while to speak with our audience about?
Sure. It's a topic I'm very passionate about because I experienced it myself. About 5 years ago, I started my own business and became a certified divorce financial analyst. So that's somebody that specializes in the finances related to the whole marital transition or the divorce process from the beginning to the end to truly understand all the issues related to going from two people to one person incomes. So I work with individuals that are maybe starting the process or in the midst of the process and are just really confused about their finances. So they want to keep more of their money so they have a financial future for their family.
Right, right. Beautiful. Well, it's a very beautiful service. I know there's a lot of people out there who, it's in addition, there's already so much emotional uncertainty when you're leaving a relationship, and there's already so much fear around the future that everybody has. And then you add this financial fear about the future, and that could just put somebody right over the top. So, we're saying, in this conversation, we're addressing the fact that some people are really afraid to move forward. Like, maybe they stay longer than they should in a relationship just because of that uncertainty, that financial uncertainty. And so, what in your experience is the reason that what are these reasons that make them so afraid to take this, financial leap, if you will?
Yeah, well, there could be several reasons. I mean, the most severe one is financial abuse, where a person really maybe is living on an allowance where they can't really buy or do anything without approval from that person. And that's pretty scary because where are you going to even get the money to get ready to leave that type of a relationship? So
Right.
that's like the worst form of it that I've come across. But then there's people that are just they have a certain lifestyle and they're afraid of not living that lifestyle. They're afraid of, they've always had the nice cars or the nice houses and they're just fearful of how can I do this on my own? Am I going to be the same person without quote those things?
Mm.
Um, and then there's some people that are just codependent and they just have let their spouse, I don't know the finances, I'm not good at it, and why should I be bothered? I'm good at cooking, I'll do that, we'll split up the chores. So those are the three main areas that I see that are the biggest fear with people.
Right. So they might not even know how much money there is or where it comes from because they've just been given this little allowance. Um, and yeah, I could see how it could be a great big fear to say, this is the lifestyle that I've been living in. And if I had to if my finances got strangled, what won't I be able to do anymore? Yeah. And then also, when we don't take things on that because we've given that responsibility to someone else, sometimes we can mistakenly believe we don't have what it takes, right? To actually take over. Like, well, I don't know. I can't do the finances. I don't know how to balance a checkbook. I never did it, right? So,
Right.
we've got these fears like that, right? Not knowing what's it going to take for me to be responsible for all the finances for myself and maybe my children, right? Um, and how much will I need? What and especially what do I not know that I don't even know? Like, I don't know what to ask, right? I could see people like right being in that
Right,
position,
right.
like
Some
I'm
people don't
afraid of,
even,
yeah.
yeah, they don't know what is a document look like, like I've had clients that they don't even know, they just sign their taxes and they don't really know. And that's another financial abuse thing. But even to know what they have in investments, or are they in investments, or did he take money out of the 401k? And there's all different things like that if you're not really paying attention, that it can get you in trouble down the line. And a lot of people have come to me and said, I can't believe I was that, I let somebody control. And I go, wait a second. Now you're taking control. So you can take the control now and make a difference for your future, and make sure your children don't make the same mistakes you do, and know your finances. So I think it's so important that people can always learn and educate themselves on how to gather this information to make fiscally responsible decisions in the future.
Yes. And you don't need to be a CPA, right? You don't need to be a financial analyst to get an overarching understanding of the finances. But I get that it is complicated, and people are like, I don't know anything about investments, and yet there are investments, but I don't even want to know about it, but now I have to know about it. And so that can be overwhelming. Like, I've got to learn stuff that I've never had to know and I never even wanted to know. But if I want to be responsible for my finances in the future, now I've got to come to this understanding. So I can see where a lot of these fears are coming from, and um, and what's beautiful in overcoming these fears and to get to peace of mind, is your clients are stepping into a power they weren't aware that they actually possess. And that is a very beautiful thing, because once we are making smart, informed decisions, there's less fear. This is how we can shed fear, and we can have more peace of mind and feel more powerful. And this goes for all the aspects of divorce, but especially for the financial aspect. So, in overcoming this fear, to get peace of mind, right? We want to make smart, informed decisions. We don't want to be overwhelmed by all these things that we don't know. And I know that you kind of put things into like maybe three different areas of how to what a person would need to address so that they can have this peace of mind about their financial future.
Right. And I think the first thing is know your priorities. What is your priority? Do you have children that are getting ready for college, or are you about to retire and your kids are out of the house? So really know your individual priorities. Next, really know your numbers. I mean, because what are you spending money on? Are you going to Starbucks and spending $150? Is that something you can cut out? Or you signed up for memberships that you don't even use anymore? So really take a hard look at your numbers, and that's what I help you do. And then the third thing is plan for the future. Do you want to just live in an apartment and travel around the world when you retire? Do you want to make sure your kids can get as much money for their college so they're not financially in debt when they graduate? It's a unique situation for each individual. And I can't like say it's cookie cutter, but really you have to empower yourself to know what you truly want and need to survive for your future.
Yes. So, where what you're saying kind of overlaps with what I do is we always start with who are you now and what do you want now? Because 10 years ago, the answer is different, right? So now you're going through a transition, a huge personal transition where you're, going from being part of a couple to single, where you're going from sharing responsibilities for some things to all the responsibilities on yourself. And so when we go through these big giant transitions, fear is the very first pit stop everybody makes. Everybody makes this. And then overwhelm is not far behind, because now I've got to take responsibility for all of this stuff. And there's so much of it, right? But before we start doing that in my business is we start with, well, who are you now and what's important to you now? Because this is where you're realigning your priorities with your values, and we need to, it's a reductive process to get rid of the schmutz that's in the way. So like when you say like lifestyle, right? So we have lifestyle expenses that maybe someone is used to having a certain lifestyle expense. When you look at it from what do I truly want, what's important to me, a really important caveat is if I can't use it as a measuring stick of success, right? A measuring stick of how I stack up against with other people. And to get our egos out of the way, to say what's really truly important to me if no one else were looking, what's the most important things, and that's how we realign our priorities. We find our true values. I know my true values changed over time. Somewhere in my mid 40s, my true values became about ease and freedom, but those didn't occur to me when I was in my 30s. In my 30s,
Right.
my values were different, right? But when I went through a big personal transition, my values shifted. They shifted order, and some of them dropped right off. And so now, who am I now? What am I, with this change? We've got to discover our new identity, because we've just shifted out of an old identity that no longer fits us, whether we asked for it or we didn't ask for it, whether it's it was a decision, someone made for us or we made, whether it's negative or positive. However, I like to look at it as positive as what's the next step. So, I didn't get divorced. I was headed that way for sure for positive, but my husband passed away in his sleep. And it was a huge transition. And I experienced a lot of these same fears. Like now I've got to take care of all of it, everything, even the overwhelm of, no, I got to take out the garbage and cut the lawn. Right?
Well, that's funny you say that because I had a friend, she's like, he cut the grass. I'm like, how much? Get some prices and see how much it's going to cost you to cut the grass. You have a teenage son, make him cut the grass.
That's right.
You have to, and that's the thing. I think we fear so much of how other people around us judge our success.
Yes.
But, my success is completely different than what's important to you. And you can't, and I've heard you say this before, in your other talks about how, you were driven and everything like that. But that's the same thing when you have to look at your finances. You really have to prioritize. For some people, it's making a trip 2 times a year. For others, it's having the gourmet kitchen of their dreams and having parties at their house. So you can't clarify that. You just have to really own up to what's important to you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the prioritizing is really important, because when you do, you recognize you get to let go of things. And when you let go of things, you let go of the fear associated with those things. And that's part of getting peace of mind. Then the second part that you brought up is this financial picture. And I know you have a resource, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, to help people with this process. But looking at how much money will be coming in and what are my expenses, the ones I have to pay no matter what. But now my lifestyle expenses, now that I've got my new priorities and what's really true and right for me, now maybe some of those I can let go, right? And maybe, when you let go of things, you don't always have to look at it as being in a deficit. There's a couple of, there's psychology around that. We don't like to be in a deficit, so we don't want to have things that we can't have anymore. They're out of reach, right? But what we are very good at is shifting that to say, what do I get to keep, right? What are the things in align with my priorities and my values that I get to keep? And so that's a beautiful thing to say, that was not stripped away from me, because you don't want the psychology of being in loss or less than, or I'm not getting what I need, right? That is never going to be serving you through a lifestyle transition like this. So we want to look at what I get to keep. right? And what new things that I get to experience. Freedom, ease, peace, right? So as I move out of something that's difficult and I'm leaving that behind me and I'm getting clear and confident about my financial future, now this can become a good, exciting time in your life. And I remember being in part of a widows group after my husband died, and there were people who were there, like, they introduced themselves. My wife died 9 years ago. My husband died 12 years ago. And my husband had died about 2 months before that. And I wasn't a life coach yet, but I was at the point where I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be here grieving 9 years from now, 12 years from now. I'm not going to be in this place. I'm going to be in a new life. I'm going to be in a life that I love. I'm done. I just want to do the grieving the right way so I can get it behind me, because I recognize these people were sweeping this grief under the rug for 9, 12 years, right? And if you sweep it under the rug, you're never going to recover. So not only do we want to have our financial picture recovered by having some certainty, right, and understanding, all these different expenses that align with our priorities that we're going to have, and planning for this future. But we also, when we plan for the future, we don't want to think of it in terms of being a difficult, less than, I'm not going to get enough future. We want to look at it like, okay, what's next? Now I no longer have to deal with the emotional this, that, and the other thing. My finances are in order because of Gina, right? And now I can look forward to feeling emotionally, usually probably the opposite way of how I've been feeling. Maybe I've been feeling under someone's thumb, or I've been feeling like I don't know enough, right? What's it going to be like to feel that I know plenty, that I'm in charge of my finances, that I'm in charge of my future, right? And the legacy I'm leaving my children as well, that, if something's not working for you, you get out and you make your own way, and you bring along the people who can help you, people like Gina, right? You enlist the help of experts and others who can help you move through a transition. But the transition is completely in your power, because you can do anything, and it's about focusing on the bright future to come while you're moving through with help, right?
Right.
These pieces that you are uncertain how to work through, but they really have an ending. It's not, you're not going to feel this way forever, right? You're going to get comfortable with it, and then it's going to be just another thing that you have conquered, and it's going to be beautiful.
Exactly. I mean, you have to educate yourself to know I always say, know your numbers. And when people say, what, I got to know my numbers, what are you talking about? I said, you really need to know what you make in income and what you spend every month. I mean, the minimums for food, clothing, housing, and things like that. And then maybe it is important that you belong to the yoga studio and go twice a week, and that's your peace of mind, and that makes you happy. Or maybe it's a massage every other month, or a facial, whatever makes you happy. Or maybe it's keeping your kids in baseball and the friendships you make and travel baseball with your kids. So you have to define what makes you happy and not be dependent on things or other people to make you happy. And I think that's one of the things that I discovered through my own course of divorce. And and okay, yeah. I remember somebody saying to me in my big house, aren't you going to miss this? And I said, it's not a home. I said, it's where I make my home with my son. It's what's good to me. I can still have people over, and I live in an area where I walk everywhere. So it's what's important to me and my priorities. And they change along the way too. So when you initially go through a divorce, your priority might be for your kid to have a car insurance, and to get to college, and then if you're getting divorced when you're in they call it gray divorce, anybody over like 55 and your kids are out of the house, it might be, oh my God, I was depending on his retirement to keep me going. How can I do that now? So each person has to look at what's important to them. And I mean, I think that kind of ties into what you do as a coach all the time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because the transitions I take people through are not only, things like divorce, but any transitioning into, like, based on this great resignation, right? Like, oh, I've got skills and I'm no longer going to give that to a corporation. I got skills and I want to get them out to the world, right? It's still a big giant transition. We're still having this identity shift, right? And that identity shift is like, what? I don't even know what to do with this. But there's people like me who do know what to do with this and help people through it in a way that's not going to bruise you.
Right,
So,
right. Even myself now, my son is self-sufficient. So I'm really an empty nester. So the only person I have to worry about is me. So my priorities in the last, I had a 5-year plan and another 5-year plan. And now it's like, now it's my turn to plan for what I want,
right.
and that's important too. You
Yeah.
can't just live for taking care of other people with the finances. It's mostly you have to take care of yourself too. I mean, yes, we want to provide for our children or if we have to help a family member or something, but you have to come first to know what your worth is and really understand how you can move forward to be the best version of yourself.
I love that you brought up your worth. That's very beautiful because that is the center of everything. And when you know your worth, never again can someone ever stomp on you because you won't allow it. See, people can't set boundaries. Like if you're in a marriage where you have not had boundaries, and first we start blaming the other person. That's very normal. Like, well, they're noisy and loud and belligerent and demanding and whatever. But we don't set boundaries until we know our worth, truly, in a quiet, confident way. And when you truly know your worth, then you know what you deserve and what you don't deserve. And you can set those boundaries in a way that aren't like nasty talk to the hand boundaries, right? But in those boundaries that are just out of self love, and I don't choose to do this. I no longer choose to do this. And you feel like you're in a place of choice and you feel in a place of peace when you set those boundaries. And it's not just setting them, but you're able to communicate them in a peaceful manner without yelling and screaming. And then the big thing that no one's able to do until they have this worthiness piece that I talk about, that we have to just repair. I call it the worthiness repair shop when I coach people on it. It's really, once you truly repair your sense of worthiness, then enforcing the boundaries becomes easy instead of just bitching about the boundaries that you've set, but no one's actually, listening to or
No,
adhering to.
and everybody's different. Some people want to be in the house and curl up with a good book and just watch a movie and relax. And some people want to be out attending major concerts or events or nice dinners. But you have to do what's best for you. And then you have to know how to balance your worthiness too. And when to say no and say, I'm tired, I just need I don't want to do that. Or if you can't financially afford to do something, if you're financially, used to a certain lifestyle where your friends are like, oh, let's go to this fancy restaurant. You need to be honest with them and say, you know what, I'll do that once a month or once a quarter. But right now, my focus is to save money for my kids' education or so they can do dance or whatever. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of because they feel people will judge and
Right.
judge your worth by how much money you have. And I really think that people, you know what I'm saying? I
I
think
do.
people would rather feel positive energy around you than you picking up the tab for dinner. Do you know what I'm saying? That's
I do. I do. And when you really have repaired that sense of worthiness, then having those conversations with your friends comes without the fear of being judged. Might they
absolutely.
judge you? Maybe. But you don't have that fear, and it's okay if they do. That's the place of peace that we want to be at when we're moving forward after a big life transition. Is this place of peace is like, but I know I'm doing the right thing. And it's okay if you don't understand, right? It's okay. And we feel, instead of being aggravated or they're my friend, they should understand, right? No, it's okay if they don't understand. And I will try to explain it. And if they still don't get it, it's okay. This is a place we want to be, in this peaceful place where we're really good. We feel really good about who we are and our decisions, and especially feel really good about the legacy we're leaving our children. That if it's not working, I've made a change. I'm good with who I am, right? And I wasn't good with who I was before, but now I am. And so because our example is always going to hold a lot more weight than our words for our kids. And even if you're over 55 when you do this, see, then the
Oh,
message is it's never too late. It's never too late to
no.
become that
And
person you're meant to be.
you can't worry about how your parents or your kids or anybody else is going to feel about this. I was so worried. I remember telling my parents when I was going through this, and then I see some of my clients are fiscally dependent on their parents even just to get out of the marriage. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? And it's hard to have those difficult conversations, but people that are truly your friends and truly love you, when you have a conversation with them that says, you know what, I think I'm ready to leave my marriage or my relationship, but I don't know where to start. I'm afraid financially. That's when you want to call me, and then I can help you to
Yeah.
kind of wrap your head around it,
Right.
and a lot of people don't know what to say in those circumstances. And it does take a village, like you said. A lot of people come into play when you're going through this whole process.
Right. Well, one thing that I love about your process is that it's repeatable. Once somebody understands this process you take them through, the priorities, the financial picture, and the planning for the future, right? Then they can keep doing this every couple of years as their circumstances change, as their kids go off to go to college, they become empty nesters, as they, right, maybe they're in a new, they get into a new relationship, a new, healthy relationship, because maybe they've worked with someone like me so that they have this worthiness all repaired. So
Right.
now they come in whole to a relationship instead of with a void that they're looking for someone else to fill, because that's what many people do. So when you come in whole, now they get a new relationship again. Now it's time to reassess the priorities, look at the financial picture, and plan for the future. So
Right.
it's a beautiful, repeatable process. And I know that you have a resource that you can offer to our audience called the Marital Transition Planning Guide. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's just a little ebook that I've put together with some checklists in it to help you get started in the whole process. Because believe me, it took me 9 months to figure out I had to get somebody professional to help me, a lawyer or whatever. It's hard. It's hard to make that first step. So it's kind of a guideline, and it has several different checklists in your there. And one of them is knowing your priorities. And it's not just knowing your financial priorities, but what is your priority of your spouse? Maybe they want to keep the pension and you want to keep the house, or maybe it's the children and custody issues, or maybe it's even your pets. Maybe some people don't have children, but they have pets that are just as important. So to get those things together. And then the other checklist is, charting your assets. What assets do you have that you need to divide up? What were prior to the marriage, so that they're not considered part of this union together. And then even just a checklist of, okay, I need to call a CDFA or I need to call a therapist, and kind of getting you on the track, because it is emotionally challenging and it's so overwhelming. There's so many things to think about. I mean, I'm in New York State and I help people in New York State. The financial affidavit in New York State is 23 pages long. I have an accounting degree and I was overwhelmed. Okay. I mean, I wasn't a certified divorce financial analyst then, but it's just very overwhelming. I had a friend once say, if I knew I had to count Q-tips during the course of my marriage for my 3 kids, I would have done a better job. I mean, it's funny, but it's true, so
Mm.
that's where I give you some guidance and try to just direct you. And I also have some other resources, some different videos that I help, that are on my YouTube channel,
Oh, lovely.
that can help along the way.
Right.
Like I have top 10 tips of when you're starting the process,
Hmm.
to kind of educate you and do things like that too.
And I
So
love things like that. When you have like this marital transition planning guide and your YouTube videos, what's beautiful about that is a lot of times people won't make a move in life because they don't know what to do next. So they stay still. They just stay still. They stay paralyzed. And but what you're giving them, is showing them what has to be done next. So at least they know. Because how will you know if you're ready if you don't know what you got to be ready to do, right? So
exactly. Yeah. And I had somebody reach out to me before the pandemic, and I did haul her numbers. And then during the pandemic, I kept texting her and emailing her, and she goes, no, things are better with me and my husband, but thank you. I have a better financial picture of what's his, mine, and ours. And we had been married for years and things like that, and one of the things she didn't know, and I always say this to people, is she inherited some money from her mother and he wanted to use it to pay down on their second home. but he didn't use any of the money he inherited from his mother to pay down on the second home. So if you have inheritance
Mm,
and you want to keep it, I mean, if you want to do a kitchen and you want to take a piece of it, but keep it separate. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean about it, but that's just one of my tips. Like when somebody's even getting married, I tell them that. Or if you have a 401k that's prior to the marriage, keep it separate. You know what I mean?
right.
It just makes things trying to go through separating a financial, it makes it less muddy and watery and give you
Right.
more of a clean financial break and everything. So
Right. Yeah. And when you're in that next new, loving, beautiful, perfect relationship, that person will understand that you're keeping things separate. And
mm,
it doesn't mean you don't co contribute, right? It just
exactly.
means so you put in your half, I put in my half, and it all goes into this that your half and my half for our house expenses go here. My 401k is mine, yours is yours, things like that. So a loving relationship, there's no graspiness in those relationships when people are whole and they come into it. They go, I totally understand. Absolutely. Of course.
Right.
So that's a beautiful thing. Well,
And I think
Gina,
it's important. I think it's really important that no matter if you're married or not married, that you really know what's going on in your financial world, especially when you buy something together, anything together,
yes, and
to
have
really
and
truly
have
understand it.
conversations about it. Don't make assumptions. Have conversations. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it's beautiful. So, well, okay, beautiful. Thank you so much. And I will put your resources into the description, and I will put your contact information into the description for our audience. And so I'd like to thank you very much, Gina of Western New York Divorce Financial Advisors. And I'd like to thank our audience for sharing your time with us today. Please subscribe and remember to check the description where you'll find our contact information and the free tools and resources that we're gifting you. And until next time, make sure that you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited.